Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Collective Mapping of Communication Design and Research and Scholarship. So just a little bit of background about how we got started with this particular topic. I guess I'm just going to tell it from my perspective. When I was going through tenure and promotion, I was struggling with understanding what research and scholarship was within our field because it didn't seem really clear to me. I had been initially doing professional practice, and somewhere along the way, the administration, the institution said, no, that's not research. And I was like, well, that's why you hired me, but okay. And so I have a background in social sciences. And so I understood what research was in other fields. And so I started to kind of look at I tried to figure out what research was within communication design, because it really wasn't clear to me. So that really became my research, was looking into what research and scholarship was within our field. So one thing during the process, I had presented a poster at the Decipher conference, specifically looking at social sciences. My background is in psychology, and it's really kind of data driven. And so I tried to kind of overlay that understanding of social science research onto communication design, because we frequently use things like surveys and interviews and focus groups and that sort of thing when we're doing the design process. And so I kind of came up with this diagram of how you could potentially have the design product and come up with design theories through inductive research. And then through those theories, you would execute research to try and either prove or disprove those design theories. And so this was kind of one methodology or model that I had proposed that we could apply to communication design. But that's not the only kind of design research that exists. So one thing that also was really clear in the 7 years or 10 years that I've been thinking about it is that there really is a consensus that there is not a universal understanding of what research and scholarship is in communication design. These are just kind of some Venn diagrams. There's definitely a difference, in my mind at least, that between what research is in communication design versus what are scholarly activities. In some ways, those are very different. They're similar, they overlap, but they're not identical. And then very separately from that is how does your institution define what tenure and promotion requirements are that will allow certain activities or not other activities. For instance, professional practice in a lot of institutions would be in some form be considered a scholarly activity, but in my institution, it is absolutely not. So this kind of goes into, again, the idea that you're developing theory through research. And then I thought about design history, and design history also I would consider a scholarly activity that falls within the realm of communication design. In some ways, it's been the ugly stepchild of design history. In speaking with people at CAA, you just hear over the years like, oh, design history is not real art history. So I always found that kind of really interesting. The other thing that I found was, because we work in a kind of service-based field, everything that we do ends up looking like service. And so this gets really frustrating because, because we're often using our expertise as communication designers in the work that we do with research and scholarship. And when it's looked at through the lens of, say, the pure sciences or other disciplines, they're like, oh, that's great service, but where's the scholarship, where's the research? And so that, again, is really frustrating. And I'm often like trying to look at what people are doing and rethink it through the lens of communication design, scholarship, and research. So recently, Jess came to Design Incubation and said, oh, I'm constantly hearing about these problems that people are having in understanding what communication design research and scholarship is. And so we began this discussion. And one of our first discussions, she came up with this diagram where we were talking about buttons, and buttons were, she remembers, buttons were like the metaphor of the designed product. And we were thinking about, oh, you can take your buttons and have them published, and you can take your buttons and exhibit them and bring them to the marketplace. And so we were kind of using this metaphor to try and tease apart and get a better understanding ourselves of like, what's the difference between scholarship and research, and then what is the output that we should be considering. So that's where the story ends for me, and I will have Liz tell you and carry you through the rest of the story. Thank you.
All right, I am Liz DeLuna. I know some of you, but not all of you. I'm going to share my screen. So this is just a little bit of the visual part of the story of how this project started. So it looks like a big blank screen because it is, and that's where we started in Miro with a big blank screen. And then we moved to sort of some categories and lists, and just thinking about how we can break down this information and what this information is that we wanted to have be part of this sort of data collection. And then that turned into some Post-it conversations. Is practice an artifact of the design research process? Possibly. Do artifacts need to be retrievable or documented? So it's sort of went in a couple of different like Post-it trajectories. Then we added some bubbles to make like a Venn diagram that was completely random. So it sort of the idea of a Venn diagram here, but not really any form, and still sort of some comments. And we hit a little roadblock here just in our thinking and working, where this idea of research and scholarship is very sensitive. A lot of people feel a lot of ownership of research and scholarship, especially very discipline specific. So we started to tread a little more carefully. Then we were like, do we go back to like the idea of just as diagrams? Should we be thinking different mind map? But for the meantime, we decided to stay in sort of bubble world. So we came back to the bubbles, and then the bubbles got lists again, and we got some more Post-its. And this is sort of where the DRS workshop was a lot of questions with Post-its. Those Post-its and lists made it to the bubbles. So we're still sort of very much in this data collection mode, not really a form for where all this goes. Just some closer versions of how it looks, some very interesting and fun Post-it conversations. Some questions, really specific questions about, people's institutions. And some of the Post-it chains went off on their own sort of mind map. I love this one because it ends in a nap. Fix bugs nap. So now we've pretty much cleared the decks, and the idea here and for today is that maybe we had some biases about how we were even conceiving of this visually with Venn diagrams and where things intersect. And maybe the best way is just to start again and sort of do one more phase of collecting data. So we've just gone gray bubbles. And this is what the Miro board looks like that we're going to move into. And it's basically just gray bubbles that you can add information to. And this is just sort of an aside. After I'd made the gray bubbles, I was in a TDC meeting later in the week, and Zelda Harrison had made this diagram about where type drives culture lives related to other typographic conferences. And I'm like, okay, gray bubbles are a thing, so we'll go there. So that's pretty much it. I think Heather's going to talk a little bit about the future, and then I'll put stop sharing, or what we hope the future will be, and then we can move into Miro.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Snyder Quinn. I know most of you. So just to contextualize this a little bit, so DRS was great because we got some international perspectives on how they think of research. I think we would have liked a little bit more, but we got enough. And so now we are here with all of you, hoping to continue to collect data, again, with the fresh map. So we're maybe not jaded with everything that was in there previously. And then I think there's a couple ways to imagine what we might do with this tool. And that includes getting feedback from all of you, how you think, one, the tool might be used, but also the data we collect, what might be used. So for example, if you had a faculty member that was pivoting their career, how could they use this tool or this data to help them learn how to disseminate their work, or to help them pivot, or to expand where they're putting their work out there in the world. So right now, we're here with all of you today to, again, collect more data from a US audience. And then I think also brainstorm, or once you've done it, kind of help us imagine where we could bring this next, or what we might do with both the tool itself, as well as the information that we collect. So I think that's it. And now we get to work, right?
So Liz,
So
should we have them focus on one area? And
yeah, can everybody access this Miro? I put it up in the chat.
Yeah, there's 2 links in the chat.
There's 2 links.
Dan
Oh,
put it
yeah,
in.
okay.
I put it in.
Okay.
It's the same
They
board.
look
Same link,
different. Okay.
same thing,
Okay,
right.
good.
And the brainstorming prefaces, there's no bad ideas and nothing is wrong, and you should make a hot mess, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, but we're gonna, okay, yeah, it can be a hot mess. This is all true. But we will start with just the where it says questions for all groups, and I'm gonna just put a timer on for 5 minutes, and you just answer as many questions as you can in this first series of 7 questions. So
And
you
maybe,
can.
Liz, if you can show people, if they're not
Yeah,
familiar
I
with
was just
Miro,
going to
how
do that.
grab
If you,
Cool.
so there are some Post-its that are already up here, and you can just pick one of these Post-its and you can actually just write into the Post-it. You can type into them, but you can also just go to the sidebar and get yourself a little Post-it and just start typing. So once you type in the Post-it, it'll sort of scale itself, and you can just zoom in and zoom out. And as you can see everybody's cursors. So there are 7 just sort of general questions in this part. And I'm going to put the timer on for 5 minutes. Oops.
And yeah, let's see, Omar has a question in the chat. Yeah, this is just answering, not necessarily moving the Post-its. Correct. Yeah, just answering the questions for everybody at this point.
Thank you.
We'll move them later.
I do think Natasha's right though. Miro has been super slow today. It's like glitching.
Yeah. It's Friday. It's tired. Hmm.
Yeah, Natasha, you might want to try a different browser if you can. Chrome has been causing problems for me, like for the past couple of days. I don't know if it's a Google thing or not, but maybe try.
I
try
have it
Safari.
open in Firefox.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chrome has been crashing for me a lot this week, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, just try Safari if you can, or Firefox if you have it.
Well, usually I click on a link and it opens my Miro app.
Oh no, Danielle's won't work in Safari either.
Oh no.
Well,
You can write things in the chat and I'll put them in.
yeah, seriously, we could put them in there for you if you want to put things in the chat, and just let us know maybe which question you'd like to respond to. For what it's worth, I downloaded a browser called Vivaldi. That's actually been really good too. It's probably more, it's like somewhat of Firefox, but that tends to open things whenever Chrome can't.
Hmm.
Like my university's library website. That's weird.
I think Miro takes a lot of, the students always tell me their computers are going to explode. Like it just,
Yeah.
the fans start going crazy.
My fan's going pretty strong right now.
I feel like we've done it. And so now I just want to watch everybody put stuff in. It's very meditative.
It is.
It is, yeah. But I love seeing the variety of responses that show up in this section.
This group seems faster. I guess we have more people though.
Hmm. Remember, if you run out of Post-its, you can always get more. There's no really specific color coding.
And now, interestingly, my fan in the computer is just like running like super fast.
Yeah, mine is too.
Does it happen when you use Miro specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, my computer just hates me.
I think also with Miro and Zoom, it's a lot. Okay, 1 minute.
Long story finding a beer.
Do we need more time here? Another minute? Okay. Got to get to those juicy questions at the end.
The one about university guidelines.
I
Herbert's like, no.
like to just know.
Oh, and Liz, Danielle's asking in the chat if you can keep this open so she can contribute once her computer loads. Yeah, we'll have this up for the workshop, but I think it's going to be a live link even after that. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that if you have access now, you
Mhm.
continue to have access.
This will just kind of live online. Yeah.
Time's up. All right, so maybe we'll just move down to our next series of questions. So there's two different blocks of questions here. There's what we call the research-based questions and the practice-based. So we should do each of them for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Heather?
Yeah,
I
I think
we should.
5.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think we didn't get through some of these last time, right? So it'd be nice
Yeah.
to get them kind of meaty.
Okay, so let's move to research-based questions, and I'll put the timer on for 5 minutes.
Sorry, I got lost because I was still trying to catch up. What
Okay,
was the
so
prompt?
it's right here below. Do you see the arrow? So there's questions for all and then research-based questions.
Oh, okay.
We're in the chat. Mauricio is asking if there's compensation for participation, LOL. So yeah, I wish we could like send out cash.
You get your very own video filter.
I know. And, Aggie has a question. What does distribution of efforts mean? As in teaching research service, like that breakdown? I think that is what we were.
Oh, I don't remember. I
I'm
think
trying to
so.
look at that.
Where's the question?
It's in the chat. I'm
No,
looking at
no,
the
like,
board.
where is she seeing the original?
It's on the Miro board, group 2, second question with the chartreuse colored.
Oh, I see. What are your individual distributions?
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yes. That,
Yeah,
that
that's the
would be
breakdown.
teaching. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
Sir. Three-legged stool.
Yeah, Victor, if you dig into your soul.
That's my favorite question.
That's like- What the idea of soul searching research related questions? Like, how does that fit?
Hey, Jess, what is a research model?
Which part? Oh,
This is number, oh, there is no number.
There's no numbers.
What research model?
Mhm.
What research model you think design should follow? What is a research model?
So for example, like research in the sciences or research in social sciences, research in
Humanities.
art history, humanities,
I guess
visual
pre-existing,
research.
like,
Mhm.
Yeah, some pre-existing, like,
Okay,
or
thank you.
do we develop our own?
Right.
Which I think is also fair to put in there,
Mhm.
like design specific.
Mhm.
Hey, Dan, you're a pirate again.
can you see out of that eye with the patch over it?
Not too bad. Yeah. I've gotten used to it.
Mhm.
It's really fun just to watch Miro when there's a bunch of people on it.
And I love the responses.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
maybe I should add another minute here.
Yeah,
another minute.
this is like
Yeah.
very quick.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's a lot to write in here, you know?
gotta go fast. Yeah.
They should make bigger Post-its.
No, I'm just not very
Well,
good at Miro.
It's all by scale. So,
Yeah.
you can scale them up or down depending on, how you choose to scale your board. And you can put a bunch of text in it, but it'll just get really small. All right. I know it's quick, but still more questions.
We going to the practice space?
Now there's practice based. So
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes, which will probably turn to 6.
This one's make me laugh. My design is complete 5 minutes after I started presenting.
Like, really, do you want us to list all the steps in the process? We need like
You
half hour
can.
for that.
I know, but that's where you get those crazy like email chains. But some processes are really like intensive in terms of the steps and some aren't, I assume.
It's like listicle style. Yeah. Top 3, top 5. For anyone, a couple people just joined us. I'm going to put a link to the Miro board here in the chat, so you can access that.
Okay, I'm gonna put another minute on here. I love some of these answers. What inspires you to be a designer? Bad design.
I know, that's a good. And can you do a design project without a client? Yes, an MFA thesis. Yep.
That's a good. That's a good one.
It's quite true.
Project that you pay to do.
Yeah.
All right. So if we're feeling really brave, we can move over to the big empty gray
Gray
circles,
bubbles.
the gray bubbles.
Liz,
So
we're not bringing
these-
the stickies over there, right? We're just going.
No, I mean, you could bring over stickies, but you could just put in your own stickies, and or if there's some, because this is where we're not even sure
Mhm.
if we have all the categories or if we need more categories. So there's some empty
Right.
bubbles at the bottom. And I know this is very intimidating because it's totally blank,
Yeah.
but yeah, this can just be like Post-its of lists of things or just Post-its of individual things that fill these spaces. So different kinds of practice, history, funding sources, movements, products and artifacts, research, theories and philosophies. Go with my good old timer again.
This one is more intimidating, you know?
It is
It,
intimidating.
it feels a little more formal
Yeah.
than the Post-its.
Because it's empty. Well,
Mhm.
not long. I forget, what does industry mean? Or maybe we are to determine that.
Not academia?
Different places that you would
Like type, oh, okay.
find design research, scholarship. And there may really be some things that we're totally not thinking of.
I use Miro a lot on in my classes, and now I know how students feel when I log things, and I'm trying to edit something, and I'm just selecting a log box. Usually, I don't get that experience.
But if you don't lock things, sometimes they get moved all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. So definitely, I
Yeah.
understand. It's just that when I click, it just selects the box. So I'm trying to edit or like double tap, so we'll create another note, sticky note, and it doesn't. So it's because it's locked, so it's selecting the larger thing. I wish
What's
that-
maybe I didn't know if there's any that are locked in here, but maybe you're right.
No, I wish there was a Miro way that you could do layers that when they are locked completely. So it's not that you're selecting it.
Yeah. I mean, I can unlock it.
No, don't.
Okay. I didn't realize there were any stickies that were locked in there.
No, I'm talking about, so I'm in the conference area. So when I click on the circle, not click on the circle, when I double click, so it will create another sticky note. It just selects the whole circle in gray, the whole grid.
I see.
So I think I might have
I
asked
ca-
this. Oh, sorry.
No,
I think
go
I
ahead.
might have asked this last time and I don't remember the answer, but what does missions mean? Did I ask this last time?
I don't think you asked this last time.
Or
I
what
think
would
you
an
did ask
example
that.
be of missions?
Didn't we say like design for good or?
Yeah, sustainability, but movement, that could be
or-
considered a movement as well,
Yeah, I don't remember.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Cause?
some
Mhm.
programs, organizations
Cause,
have like
purpose?
very specific missions based. Some are very
Yeah, we were
general.
thinking about things like climate and cultural,
Mhm.
multicultural things.
I think
Community,
movements
but
and missions. could
it
be very
is sort of the,
close.
so maybe they're the same thing.
Maybe. Mhm.
Design for social change, like those kind of
Mhm.
wicked problems in design.
Yeah. Community engagement.
Yeah,
That's good.
maybe the only, I don't know, maybe they're the same. Yeah. So there's some new categories: economic development and design for non-designers.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
Hmm.
Things seem harder to fill out than others, like practice, media, history. Maybe the titles aren't so clear.
I don't know. If that-
Funding sources is needing some love, and I wonder if part of that's because we don't. I don't know that. I don't know what I would put there
Yeah.
either. NEA.
Right, NEA, private foundations, crowdsourcing, Kickstarter.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Kickstarter. That's. Oh no, people
Uh,
swarmed over to funding sources. I'm just watching this for a big deal.
Self-funding,
History
trading.
as well is a little empty. Trading.
History is
harder.
hard because what history is like, what that's so general, like what.
Mhm. I think we need more time, Liz.
Yeah, I think we need a little more time here. Okay, let's give it, how about 3 more minutes?
What do you want us to fill out in scholarship and dissemination?
Like, how do you, how would you disseminate your work, like publications, peer-reviewed publications,
Just
some kind
added
of creative output or
great exhibition. Yeah.
client, client work, self-generated work.
Wait, I'm in a different place.
Uh-oh.
I think I'm in a different place because I see the screen is showing a lot of stuff. Can you see where I am?
No.
I see.
Oh,
There's
you're
a
in
cop-
the,
there's a
Natasha,
copy of
you're
the
in the
bubbles.
copy of mapping and research.
Oh,
But we could.
I don't know what the difference is.
yeah, okay.
I might just move some
Oh,
of those
is
over
it-
actually.
Why am I on a copy?
Oh, I don't even know why that didn't, oh, that's
I'm
my
gonna
fault. I don't
move these
even-
over to one map. So just as we're
Okay, yeah, I'll do the
Yeah.
same thing. I was like, why I see things on the screen that I don't see. What I'm-
Oh, that shouldn't even, sorry.
yeah, some of these are all duplicates, but I'll get rid of the ones that
Yeah.
are duplicates.
You can move them. I could just get rid of all this stuff. It really doesn't need to be here. Goodbye. Uh-oh.
Oh, so I was filling in on the wrong place then.
That's okay. It got moved.
They're getting moved. Yeah, no worries.
All right. That's why I was so lonely. It's like, why? is that-
Like, where's everything?
Yeah, because
funny.
I'm not looking at the Zoom. So when I went to Zoom to see, my
Lost on
microphone-
Miro.
No, I'm copying and pasting stuff, and suddenly Miro's asking me if I need help. I'm like, "Well, no. Am I doing something wrong? The rest of these work or blank.
conferences. Have we like forgotten all the conferences?
There's 3 I'm moving over from the copy. So. Oh, 2 of them.
Oops.
Okay. I'm gonna get rid of the copy. It's gone.
What's 000?
Where's that?
Under theories and philosophies.
Or is it 000?
That's
Yeah.
object-oriented
Yeah.
ontology, I think. I think someone's referring to object-oriented ontology.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's not zeros.
Some kind of code.
I love it.
007.
For sure it's not out of office.
Yeah.
Design for policy making.
Do people need more time?
Oh, yeah, I have one I want to add.
Okay, let's give it a few more minutes.
I
I
just
like
saw
the sort.
Where would you put like when a company gives a institution money for a class or a project? Would that be funding or like some other category?
That's
Why would it not be?
Sponsor.
sponsor.
Oh,
sponsor?
But is that not funding?
I was thinking about someone wrote RISD, like the Hyundai initiative there. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Or like Sony will like sponsor a class or something.
Like
But
industry
that's
sponsor.
a funding,
Sponsor
I know.
a
programs,
funding source.
It's like a funding or a,
like a corporate
but
sponsorship.
it's like not a funding to you
Is that like a
necessarily.
grant?
Oh, it helps them?
It helps, well, like, yeah, like at Auburn University, their classes get funded by a corporation and the class has money or something. I mean, there's different models. I'm just not sure where it belongs, but I don't
Maybe
want to
it's its own,
forget.
maybe it's its own bubble. Just says
Yeah, maybe
corporate
it's
or
its own
partnerships
bubble.
or something.
Okay, let me make a bubble. I don't know how to make a bubble.
Would you like a bubble? I'll make you
I would like a
bubble.
bubble, Liz.
Now I think I might have to
Extra
unlock
bubble?
my,
Coming right up.
no problemo. I maybe have to get rid of the design incubation logo. Hit the bubble.
We can make the logo smaller.
Make it little, yeah.
I can't even make it out.
Maybe it's locked.
Too. Yeah. Get down there. Okay, here's your bubble.
There you
Okay,
go, Heather.
I'm gonna make a mess.
I'm loving this. There's so much in here to dig into.
I know.
We got a lot of analysis coming up in our future,
Mhm.
digging through this.
Get your stuff in there, Heather, or you need some more time?
Yeah, it's messy, but it won't be forgotten.
So do we want to just have like a little 10-minute debrief here?
Sure.
Let's see.
Oh, yeah, I want to do one more thing.
Oh, I got lots of Post-its. That's excellent.
Liz is the best Moreau facilitator.
Yes,
I don't know.
you're pro.
Sometimes the board has a mind of its own. So any thoughts about a good way to create this map? It's kind of a big open question.
Mhm.
Brian? Have any thoughts about how we can make it interesting, interactive, or maybe not interactive, but some kind of useful tool with this data collection?
In the chat, Mauricio's written a gigamap.
A gigamap.
A gigamap.
What's a
Oh, no.
gigamap?
I don't know, Mauricio, is that a thing or are we, is it?
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
I like the sound of
actually,
it.
yeah, actually, it's a thing. I don't know if you have heard of the Systemic Design Association. So these guys have proposed, basically it's a big map, like an infographic with a lot of connections and interactions, like a system map, but big.
Okay.
They call it the gigamap.
Okay, we need a gigamap.
Yeah, that's great.
And is
Is
there a
there-
gigamap tool that exists that already is kind of built or do you have to kind of program that?
I think hiring a graphic designer would do it.
So in
Just kidding.
the class that the BIPOC design history has done for the Latino design histories and complete historia del diseño gráfico, they use Miro and they created a very large map of connecting elements. So this kind of reminds me in a way. So I think it's because of so many of us have been using Miro or Mural for teaching remotely. It could be a really good way for faculty to actually use these in terms of presenting our work. Because even to this day, I was actually having a session yesterday. We have a 10-year academy at my school, and we were discussing how to show all the vastness of what design can do. That is not the same as putting a paper publication or a book that other disciplines often do. So we have like physical material work. And I've been using Miro for that. So I think that this could be really good too.
I mean, one of the limitations that I feel like exists with something like Miro is that it's really two-dimensional or one-dimensional. And in some ways, once we would, start to look at each of these Post-its and dig into them, they may have different layers and they connect back to each other's and each other, through various ideas. And I think that from that perspective, I feel like it is a limitation of Miro.
You could still link them between different areas and come back.
Mm-hmm.
Would any of you find a map living online like this to be helpful? Just throughout carving out your own pathways or just making your own decisions on whether you're switching gears in your research or starting something new or, okay, that's helpful. We've been kind of talking about like, this is a map, but it also could be, part of this could be just take shape of like a report. It could be a multiple different things that could be shared in different ways online.
A report PDF format, I think, would be helpful. I could see in that case that of sharing it like with our respective institutions. As I've mentioned before, just in hearing what people need around this subject is that communication and validation from, institutions like AIGA DEC and Design Incubation to back up their work.
Saying that what this person's doing is legitimately considered design research, design scholarship, stuff like that. Yeah.
So maybe something that functions on a few levels in that way also, that it has a written component, a visual component, maybe even an interactive ongoing component.
Are people finding that just seeing what is here has revealed anything in their own understanding, or potentially they'd come back to it to investigate further?
Yeah, I think this would be, I haven't actually started in an academic job field yet. and I'm looking forward to, when I do, being able to come to this as knowing that there's a place to start, at least, as opposed to having to start from scratch. So I think this is, I'll be visiting this a lot, I hope.
Great.
Yeah, me too. I think this is like great, and it's so much information, but definitely I need to come back and review this. And especially I want to say that the diagram that you showed before about methods, scholarship, and expectations for tenure, that's very important to clarify, because it's not the same thing, like being in one circle only. It's
Right.
finding the sweet spot. So I think this helps to find that sweet spot. At least definitely.
Yeah. Well, and I think we want to empower designers to be able to carve out the path that's right for them and not be driven only by tenure and promotion requirements, because that would be, that limits, right? Especially if you're in a university that's heavily full of PhD or more traditional standards of scholarship, then this makes it easier to navigate how you might disseminate work that's maybe off the beaten path, or that's practice, or whatever it is. So I think it can be a nice tool in that way.
I also just love reading the responses. Like there's so many points of entry and points of accessibility, and it's just also great to see that people share the same challenges and struggles, and there's a lot more points of connection than we might have thought, because probably everybody is doing something pretty different in terms of like their connection to academia or the industry or design disciplines.
Yeah, I'd love to go through and find just common themes that are coming up, as well as the outliers. What are the things that people are doing that don't fit any of these categories, which I think is really interesting. Yeah. Anybody put in nap? Because that came up last time. Just, given the time of day and it's a Friday.
I wanted also to say that I also find it extremely useful in terms of planning for the future, and all these conversations, since design incubation, trying to place oneself within, academic context, coming from practice, is kind of a very tricky identity crisis moment, right? Where you're trying to imagine how you still do what you've been doing all your life, but how do you connect back to theories and to ways of making in other fields? So I think that maybe a common thread that seems to be coming is the interdisciplinary aspect, but in general, the networking part of it, where teaching connects to research and research connects to other fields. And that I think it's really important that as the map evolves, that those connections are there, because it seems that it's a tool for us, a tool for new faculty, anyone doing research, but I guess in general, it's almost like a tool for imagining the field, right? To map it the way that you guys are talking about it, to map it as in the future, in contrast to how it's been done up until this point by other, in the past. So yeah, thank you for opening the space, I guess.
Yeah, it makes me think too, it could give new designers, new faculty a savviness. So like, for example, even knowing a funding source could be negotiating for a summer salary or asking for startup funds. I feel like so many designers, especially that pivot from practice, have no idea a university might be able to offer them startup funds to get going. So, that relates a little bit to funding or other aspects of how do you build your research and what can you rely on to help you build it, especially in the early stages, right? So.
Yeah, like there's a lot of cultural knowledge about this stuff that doesn't get passed on in a classroom environment.
At all, yeah.
And you just kind of absorb it either from your mentors along the way or your colleagues. And yeah, but startup funds, if you don't know about it, you don't know about it.
Is there a book, I think of like How to Be a Designer Without Losing Your Soul? Like that, as it is, like the professional practice part of it was like, that book was like such a revelation for me and like so valuable. I'm assuming there is not that How to Be a Graphic Design Professor Without Losing Your Soul.
There should be.
Make that book.
Maybe that's what the map gets used to write.
I mean, in some ways that's kind of one of my hopes, is that by creating this thing. You know, on the one hand, I want to lock everything in place and not lose any of this, but it's also, you know, it's a living, breathing entity that needs to kind of grow and change. But I hope that people will be also be able to identify themselves on this map, and then find those that are, you know, investigating similar ideas, and say, well, you know, where do you live on this map? And you can connect with other people to collaborate.
Mhm. Oh, that's a nice idea. So like, say you wanted to get into journals or some kind of grant funding, but you wanted to find someone who had done it. Is that what you mean, Dan? Like you might be able to have expert people in areas. And that reminds me of wanting this like interactive map too, where you could see if you click on this, which ones it moved, you know, what are we comparing that to? But you could also add in a layer of people too, scholarly experts or something.
Yeah. So for instance, you as an individual might be taking one sort of theory or philosophy and applying a certain practice to that, and then using a certain type of research methodology. And so, you know, you're part of these various specificities of it. And there might be people who are doing similar but different things.
It's like how universities have like a find a researcher, you know, pages, or look for specialties, and it's kind of beyond the institution at that point, just within our discipline who's doing what. Be really helpful.
Like my immediate interest right now, it would be like, what are all these theories and philosophies, and how are they applied to design research, and then who's working in those areas? That would be my first question.
Yeah, I second Julia. I think that this can be also applied in terms of teaching and service, because it's like if we are like showing the whole panorama of what we do and how our expertise is being used. For example, I am in the strategic committee at my school right now. We're working on a new mission and goals and all these things, but I'm not actually in the committee coming up with the content for the mission. I am in the committee that is preparing all the behind the scene work. So I create the Miro boards that create all the design thinking interaction. And that's considered service, but there's a lot of scholarship in that, because all the knowledge that I have, all the design thinking training that I have received, I'm using it to facilitate these conversations. And there's a facilitator that's getting like really lots of money being paid for facilitating the in-person meetings, but all the other meetings that are virtual are through Miro. And I come up with all the interactions in Miro. So how do I account for that besides a nice like letter from the committee chair saying thank you for your service, because that's my work. And I wonder how, you know, I could incorporate that service work as part of my scholarship, even if it's not a publication.
I mean, that's another factor that's involved in what we're doing. You know, the discipline is so young that it needs a lot of service, and then we're on top of that, we are professionals in communication design, so we're figuring out how to design our discipline. And then they say, well, that's great service, but where's the scholarship? And it's like, well, that's actually scholarship, because right now there is no discipline the way that, you know, the pure sciences have existed and, you know, for centuries. So again, you know, how do we help each other to position that? And that kind of leads to something else that we have talked about quite a bit and we're still discussing is Design Incubation wants to create a research workshop, research fellowship, which would be a 3-day event, much like the writing fellowship. But we're trying to figure out, like, what do we cover? There's such a wide range of, you know, topics, research methods, philosophies, media. How can we best create something that will, you know, embrace and include everybody together and at the same time make it sustainable. So we're definitely looking for input on that as well.
That would be great. Yesterday in the Tenure Academy, they were explaining how we could do our research documents for tenure and promotion. And they put together this list of things on how to express our accomplishments and, you know, the time that we put, the roles, etc. So I think something like that for designers would be super useful.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I've been doing recently, because I'm the new chair of my department, I have a handful of junior faculty, and I'm having to review their CVs. And because, again, a lot of this stuff is unclear, every CV is organized in a completely different way because a lot of our stuff doesn't fit into typical peer-reviewed or typical, you know, this and that, the structure that other CVs are made. And so the one thing that I do is help them to try and organize and be consistent about how they present their work in their CV, and trying to take things out of the service bucket and put them into the scholarship bucket. But I think that what would be great amongst all of us as a discipline is to start to kind of establish what is the best way to present these different activities in a way that is discipline wide. So we don't have to struggle and spend so much time just figuring out how to organize and present it.
Yeah.
Dan, I want to say, I think this is a great effort to yes, try to organize us as a community. I have been thinking that maybe one need is how we get all of the community to read the same venues. And then I am saying this just because what happens, for example, in engineering or other fields is that they publish, and then right after that, others read and cite the work of others. So I feel that in the design community, we're citing other disciplines, but not ourselves. So I don't know how to get that done, but yes, maybe try to select what are the venues that we want to focus on.
Yeah, I agree. I think the design field does a really terrible job of elevating the work of other designers, whether through citation in an exhibition, you know, because our materials are so vast, right, are so broad, but it's not doing us any favors. So, you know, how do we cite people from other fields as well as each other, right? In whatever materials it is. I think that's what you're saying, because then you can speak to it, you can show impact in the way a PhD can say they have 200 Google citations, right? What do we have? 200 some other kind of citation, and maybe Google too. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like documenting and archiving the work too, in a way that makes it findable and knowing where to find that. Like
totally.
It's like I can look at a database to find articles, but how do I find the like practice?
An exhibition or some,
because if that's art doesn't exist with like an ISBN or, you know, a DOI or something, like how do you find it? And then it gets more difficult.
Yeah, that's so true.
To cite.
That's an interesting link, Chris. Thank you for sharing.
Do I want to see, what is it?
Yes, this is interesting. Which I'm curious about. How does all this get filtered into here? Maybe under credits.
Who made that? Do we know who's behind this? Is it somebody we know?
Jarrett Fuller.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I love how Aggie's book like articles at the top, and she like just left.
I know. We know a lot of people on. She has two on here.
Yeah, she does.
Oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But how does like the sorting, how do you get,
or how do you get on there, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think
Because
it's
like, for example, with peer reviews, if it's something with design incubation, we go to the website and we can see the different presentations through the symposium, right? Symposia.
Mhm.
But this one, is it because he knows these people? Is it because he was like searching a particular topic? You know, that would be.
I took this as to be his just personal list of works that have been important to him. Yeah. That's my assumption.
Yeah, I think that's right. I went to grad school with Jarrett, and he developed this as he was starting his podcast and interviewing people and reading what they wrote. And so it was just a process for him to share that research. And so it really is just his personal like recommendations.
That's good. Thank you.
Well, it looks like we're a little over an hour now, and we've generated a lot of and unpacked a lot of knowledge and content here. Like I mentioned in the chat, I'm realizing how important that this is a community collective that'll just only grow each of our individual cases and work processes even further. I forgot to point out at the very beginning, our newsletter, the AIGA DEC newsletter, went out earlier today, and we are running a design writing fellowship where we'll be unpacking yet another kind of form of dissemination that we think have a lot of questions and possibilities around it, and that's the visual essay. So if you're interested in joining that particular group, we would love to see your submission in the call for participation link.
Rebecca, I
that's
have a
provided in-
question.
Yes.
So I saw that in the newsletter, and I also, well, actually it's a question for Rebecca and Dan and Heather. So there's the design incubation that's for the summer. Then there's the visual essay, and there's the written space, or the one that Aris is doing. So there's 3 things going on for writing. Is that so?
Well, we haven't started ours yet. Writing is one component of what the research fellowship will be about, but it won't be the only component.
Okay, yeah, because there's one that is due the 14th, and it's for writing, and it's writing groups. And
I
then
think that's Eris's new one.
That's Eris's, yeah.
Yeah.
Through
Okay.
the writing space. Yeah.
Yes, that.
Mhm.
So that's different from the other one that is due in I think December, but it's an application for the summer in June. Is that so?
So
Yes,
I know
is.
the writing
No.
space that Eris and Maggie put together. There's a writing groups, and then there's a writing fellowship.
Yes.
So there's 2 different options, I think, through them. And then there's the AIGA DEC writing fellowship. And there's the design incubation will one day be their research fellowship that we're working on. We've also talked about doing some writing workshops, not like a fellowship for writing, but just like small scale, how to write an abstract, how to write a proposal, things like that. But those are not on a calendar yet.
Okay, yeah,
Right,
because
from-
I
Sorry,
had
go ahead.
seen something that is an announcement that the dates were in June, mid-June, and it was an application coming soon, maybe in December. Besides the one that is for the Iris one that she took separate from the EI, there was one that is like for next summer, and it sounds like it's a fellowship.
Is that the AIGA one? I feel like, Rebecca?
So this one we'll launch it and begin in January, and then it'll end in June. So maybe that's where you're getting the June date.
Or there's another one.
Or
altogether.
there's another one. Which I think it's great. There's so many opportunities.
No, you can't have too many, right?
Yeah.
No.
And I know that the impetus and motivation behind, DEC doing one started with the conversations and identifying the need for more publication spaces. So, maybe that's a whole other side topic of, we'll have, with some of the journals like not existing anymore, how do we bring up more publishing opportunities? So, maybe hopefully some of these workshops will lead to another type of journal. So that, that's kind of what we're questioning and seeing that need for all of us, or more publication journal spaces.
I just posted in the chat the one that I was saying that it's in June. So it's design, I found it in Design Incubation, and it's 2022 Design Writing Fellowship, hosted by Writing Space. And the applications, and it's held in June to
Right. So that's what used to be the Design Incubation Fellowship. So that's, yeah. And then there's also the writing groups, which is a separate thing where groups of people, I think there's like 3 or 4 people, just get together and write on a regular basis and then talk about their writing.
Yeah. So the one that is not the writing groups, but that one that I just shared is a different one from the DEC one. The DEC is a visual essay, right? Okay.
Right.
Oh, that's right. It's a visual essay. I remember that now. Right.
Yeah, I've been saving the stuff that comes across, but I started like blending because obviously I'm interested in all of them. But I'm like, okay, which is you when, all these things.
Yeah.
I see people popping off, so I wanted to make sure to get the thank you out there for everyone joining and participating today. And thank you to Dan and Jessica and Liz and Heather for walking us through and inviting us into your process. So it's exciting to see the progress made today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Well, I'm coming to the last one.
Oh yeah.
Now you're roped in.
Yeah.
You're in.
Repeat customer.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Enjoy your
you so
weekend.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.